Welcome back to the Artist Access. Y'all just seen Ebony do her thing. Man, she dope. Y'all make sure y'all follow her. Get ready for that EP. It's coming soon. But right now, I have with me my brother in poetry, the man known as Essentials Immortal.
Glad to be here, bro. Glad to be here.
How you doing, kid?
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Yeah.
You know, dealing with this fluctuating Houston weather. You know, this that Twilight Zone weather.
Hey man, look here. Up and down, cold, hot, look here.
Every other day.
Yeah. So look, man, I've been seeing this guy perform for a while on Sundays at the Poetry Lounge, and I think the first time I saw you perform was at one of the early shows, 2:00 shows, and I'm like, dude, dope. You feel me?
Respect. Appreciate
and that show was my first time performing. You feel me at the early show?
I remember that. I remember.
Yeah. So I said, man, and so I didn't know you from nothing, but ever since I've becoming like you like a regular.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you and Seven go back from college? Y'all went to school together or something?
Me and Seven go back a ways, actually.
Yeah.
Me and Seven got a good 25 years between us.
Okay.
I didn't attend PV. He's a product of PV. I hail from the home of the great debaters, Wiley College.
Okay.
But
Same
we're also
fraternity?
frat brothers.
Okay, I know it's something y'all connected with. Yeah.
So
yeah.
we're also frat brothers.
Q-Dog, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So we got time between us. I've actually been rocking with Poetry Lounge since it first started back in Pisano's 20 plus years ago.
So you go way back.
Yeah, I go back a little
Pisano,
ways.
so that's before the Shadow Bar?
Shadow Bar, Pisano's became the Shadow Bar.
Okay, see, I wasn't out here yet, but I've heard so many stories about the Shadow Bar.
Oh, man, it was a vibe. That was actually where I first decided to get on stage with poetry.
Oh, so you was just a fan at first?
Yeah, I wrote poetry before I came there. I was already writing, but I had never experienced anything like the Poetry Lounge.
Wow.
So when I came there, I saw all these poets getting on stage doing their thing, all these black people in the spot, you know. It was the culture, it was the vibe, it was everything. And I was like, man, I want to bring one of my pieces to the stage.
Yeah.
So I sat there and I became a student. And eventually I got on stage and the rest is history, man.
So you from here?
I'm from here. I grew up here in Houston. Was born in Arizona. My parents met in the military. Both my parents went in the Army. I went on later in life to join the Army as well. But I was born at Fort Huachuca in Arizona, and parents moved out here by the time I was 3. Grew up out here, left, came back. Houston is home.
Right. So, man, me and TNT were talking earlier, so you was writing poetry, right?
Absolutely.
Hadn't performed it yet. But when you went to an actual show and seen other people performing their craft, it kind of lit something in you, right?
Yeah, it was the energy. The energy was contagious, man.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much as, for me, it was seeing different poets, different people from different walks of life hit the stage and give a piece of themselves to the audience. And in a lot of ways, the way it was facilitated by Seven and Bar None, by Joe P, by King Carl MC, so many, Nikki the Kid got her start there as far as, I mean,
So Bar
so
None go
many
way
people.
back there too?
Yeah. So I knew Bar None before I knew Seven. Me and Bar None, all three of us are frat brothers, but me and Bar None crossed in the same year, 98. So that's how me and Bar None met. Right? And I met Seven through Bar None. Right? So they've been rocking together for a hot minute. Of course.
Right.
So I mean, you could trace the timeline, man. 6 degrees of separation. You know what I'm saying?
So what began you even writing in the beginning? Like, what made you want to journal your thoughts down and whatnot?
I think that's the natural state of the human condition in a lot of ways. I want to say I started writing in middle school. At least that's what my classmates tell me. I don't remember it that clearly.
Right.
I will say that around high school, I think I was around maybe my sophomore year or something.
No music. You wasn't like trying to be an MC at first, a rapper.
I
type
wasn't.
thing?
I wasn't. I loved hip hop.
Right.
But the concept of me rapping wasn't there. You know, I grew up on Too Short. You know what I'm saying? I have my fair share of hip hop influence.
Yeah.
But for me, what made it click for me was seeing. I came home from school one day and I walked through the door, and my dad's wife at the time, Mary, me and her had a great relationship. She was sitting at the dinner table writing. I was like, "What you doing?" It's like, "I'm writing poetry." It's like, "For real?" So I was like, "Can I read?" So I read a few lines. I was impressed. I'm a kid, had never read anything like that. So I went to talking to her about poetry, and she gave me her spiel, her perspective, and something right there started for me.
So share with us, man. What was her perspective on that?
Really, she just basically broke down that it was really her way of putting her thoughts and her feelings on page in a creative way, right? And I could identify that. I could identify with that. I mean, I was already big into music, but just to hear someone talk about sharing their own thoughts, because I think as a kid, when I was listening to hip hop, I think like a lot of kids, you idolize musicians and artists to the point where you don't even think about yourself doing this to some degree. But her sitting down there doing her own thing artistically made that a reality, right? So that the possibility of that reality became real for me,
Right.
and so that's when I had a thought or something going on that hit me, I would write. I would write when I felt it. That was it, and I would leave it at that.
Right.
So I started writing. I kind of started writing, and I had fair success in high school. That was probably one of the few subjects I actually enjoyed.
Right.
But it grew from there.
Right.
It grew from there.
Right. And you got on stage first after college.
Yeah. So
What was that like?
that
first time being on stage.
Well, going to a HBCU, you get the opportunity to see people who get on stage.
Yeah.
At different talent shows, right? I never imagined doing that, even though I think I was writing while I was in college. I never thought about taking my poetry to stage.
Right.
But going to Poetry Lounge, going to Pisano's, and seeing a space made for poetry. They didn't come there to hear people sing.
Right.
They didn't come there to hear people play instruments. They came specifically for people to share their art, share a piece of themselves through their craft, right? And that was inspirational. So I remember the first poem I decided to do, I wrote, it was called Threat.
You remember that?
Yeah. I wrote that poem to perform at Pisano's. That was the first poem I had ever performed. And I wanted I wanted to perform something that wasn't superficial. I wanted to do something that was important to me as a young black man with some level of awareness, if you will.
Right.
I was able to recognize what was going on around me, different experiences I had, and I spoke to life as a young black male being perceived as a threat. So that was the start for me, and after that, it was all love.
Right.
It was all love. Always all love. Back in those days, I would say that's one of the things about the poetry community then versus now. The love was just all out there in the open. I mean, you could walk to the room and get wrapped in it. It was just love.
That's just before the clicked up days.
Just before the clicked up days for all of that, right?